So we've been having some interesting conversations, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I think maybe for myself, I'm a little bit of a contrarian when it comes to this ideology that, as I've talked to a lot of people about relationships recently, there's been a big theme of um, making mistakes. So as we're
Mm.
getting older, we're young, we don't really know what we want. We start dating the wrong people. We have different criteria for the kind of people we date, and I hear a lot of the pattern over and over about people, as we're reviewing or thinking about the past and maybe experiences they've had, what are the type of things that they went through that then help them learn how to pick partners or date today. And a lot of the things you hear people talk about is making mistakes. Now, I'm of the belief that yes, we definitely have to make mistakes to then learn from them to then improve our behavior and our decision making.
Mhm.
But I also think that there's a lot of things that we don't have to go through and that we can learn from other people's mistakes. So whether that's seeing, the failures of our parents or friends or extended family, watching our, very close friends or relatives go through relationships and seeing what worked and what didn't. And I
Mhm.
think for myself, I spent a lot of time as a kid watching like my friends have relationships and really thinking, what worked and what didn't. Like, oh, well, when he talked to his girlfriend, this is what happened, or when she was with this guy, like this is how this
Mhm.
played out. um, and I think sometimes we in hindsight look back a lot and say, well, we had to make those mistakes to become who we are today. And sometimes I push back on that because I think, well, did we really? And I think one of my goals is always to say, how do you help younger people live life and not make the same mistakes that maybe we did, or not make the
Mhm.
mistakes they saw their parents make, and then use that as an excuse. Because I think big picture, the ecosystem of relationships and dating and the interactions we have with people become um, we tend to become more jaded by those experiences. And I think the problem I'm seeing is that a lot of people I meet who now we're older, we're in our 30s and 40s, we look at certain things and now our reality of what dating and marriage and relationships are has now been completely altered
Mhm.
permanently based
Mhm.
on our experiences, and those were only
Mhm.
because we made a handful of mistakes,
Yeah.
maybe in our teens and 20s.
Yeah, I think that's a valid assessment. And I wish I could give you like the best answer as to how to work around, making those decisions. I guess if it were me, I think my biggest mistake was that I let my guard down and I compromised my values. So, kind of to speak to what you were talking about, how a lot of times people kind of go two ways. On one hand, either maybe you had you know a not great example of your parents being in a relationship and stuff, and you think to yourself, well, I'm never going to do that, but you do find yourself replicating those same patterns. So that can happen. And then on the other hand, like you said, you can kind of go complete opposite end of the spectrum and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to date somebody that you know cheats or yells or whatever your thing is. But I think that ultimately what it comes down to is, like I said, for me, it was just, and we talked about this on another episode. I kind of got to the point in my life where I felt like I had all these things going for myself, and I look back now and I think, like, why would you ever lower your standards or settle for something just because you had everything lined up the way you wanted to? Somebody still should have brought something to the table. So I
Right.
think for me, that if I were going to give advice to somebody in regards to making mistakes or something like that, is just, you have to hold on to those values no matter what happens, whether you're successful and you have all these things and you feel like you can take on, maybe, I don't even want to say it out loud, like, that you can lower your standards or, go on a date with somebody outside of, let's just say, your criteria,
Yeah.
um, don't, I mean, in a sense of, like, if it's something like, okay, maybe your criteria is that they have to make $75,000 a year, and you're going out with somebody that makes 70 a year, or whatever the thing is. But don't settle for somebody that maybe doesn't have equal to what you're looking for, meaning like a job, education, or the same value system as you do. Does that make sense?
It
I don't know if
100%.
I'm oversimplifying, but that is where I got myself into huge trouble.
No, and I completely agree. And I think everything you're touching on. I want to try to compress it into like really like bite-sized nuggets. And I think, to me, I think the answer is that we need more people to hold us accountable. We need more of our ecosystem, because I think I would bet to say, when you're going through those decisions and you're thinking of, lowering your standard, you probably had friends or people in your life who are like, no, it's fine. And they were
Yeah,
co-signing everything that's
totally.
happening. So,
Mhm.
maybe you didn't really, in essence, think that you were lowering your standard because you're able to convince yourself
Yeah.
or rationalize with yourself that no, it's totally fine. It's
Mhm.
okay because I'm
Mhm.
not actually lowering my standard.
Mhm.
My friends like this
I'm just
person.
going on a date. It's no big deal. And literally
Exactly.
that was like the story of the whole, thing. And then you catch feelings and, there you are in a situation that you never really intended to be in the first place. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think that's one of the big problems that, we, and I keep bringing up this theme of like us needing to help each other, whether that's men with men, women with women, men with women, vice versa, that we need to be in a situation where people are actually being honest. And I think, of course, it's much, harder when you're young. Your 16, 18, 21-year-old friends are not going to be like, look, Jen, you're making a big mistake here.
Yeah.
And even if they do, it might be one or two, but then
Mhm.
there's 25 or 30 other people that are saying, no, it's fine, it's just a date, it's just this. And the
Yeah.
more you can kind of convince yourself that, like, hey, I don't have to go to the gym, I can eat those Oreo cookies, the easier it is for you to actually take that action. But if you had more and more people there to actually hold you accountable, might be,
Yeah. That actually reminded me of something that is so powerful in what you said is that so when I was younger in high school, my mom would like beg me to just, and I'm talking 16, 17, age appropriate, to just go out on a date, just to just even if he wasn't the guy that I thought was the hottest football player or whoever it was that I might have been interested in, just as a friend or just as a date. And I was so uncompromising, and my thing is like, I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste their time. I know that I'm not interested. Now, I mean, again, I'm going to be 41 now. And I mean, I see things completely differently, but then I was completely unwavering and unshakable. And then, so in a lot of ways, my mom should have actually probably been saying to me, you know what, Jen, like, don't settle. If you don't need to necessarily go on those dates if you're not really feeling into it or whatever. Don't force yourself to do something you're not interested in. And then, like I said, then fast forward and to my 30s, and I'm like, what? Why not? I'll just go. It's no big deal. Like you're right. My mom's right. No big deal. And it was a big deal. So I don't know.
But you know what? I would maybe actually say that the combination of what both of you guys were saying was actually right. The one caveat there is that, what I've been telling people of recent, and actually what I experienced when I first became single, was I actually did just go out on dates that maybe the person wasn't right for me. I didn't
Right.
care about the criteria that I had at the time, because it wasn't that I was lowering my standard. What I was actually trying to do was stress test my standard. And I was also trying to see, well, maybe I'd be surprised that there might be a criteria of a person that I would actually like that I didn't know.
Right.
Because
Yeah, that's
how,
fair. Totally
how do you
fair.
actually know? And I think maybe, again, your mom had the right advice, but maybe she didn't explain exactly why you were doing it.
Yeah.
Because, I guess that the one layer on top of what she said is, yes, go out, just try. But really, that would be in the vein of go out and try and make mistakes, learn things. What do you like? What do you not like? I
Hmm.
mean, again, how did you know you liked, Chinese food before you had it, or Thai food, or,
Hmm. Hmm.
you didn't really know. And then once you try
Right.
it once, you go, well, how do you know you won't like this other thing or that
Sure.
other thing? And so
Yeah.
you're almost kind of learning the characteristics of the things that you like and why you like them, and then to what
Yeah.
degree you like them. So
Hmm.
I do actually encourage people like to have their criteria, of course, but understand what their criteria is and why they have it, and then stress test it. Because again, it is no big deal to go out with someone or try something
Right.
new if you're looking at it in the vein of learning and in
And then,
terms of,
I
oh,
mean,
am I
I
learning?
didn't have the emotional maturity then either. I mean,
Yeah,
for me, my criteria was completely superficial at the time.
of course.
I was, it was just,
Yeah.
if I did not have an instant attraction to that person, no way. Like, like I said, it wasn't worth my time. But like I said, fast forward into my 30s, and I thought, like, why should I be so rigid? Maybe it's just a date. What could it hurt? You know what I mean? And like you said, at the same time, though, you really do have to you do have to, pay attention to your standards and not lower those. And yeah, people do deserve a chance and everybody does have a story, but at the same time, you still have to pay attention to things like red flags and all those kinds of things, because they can be
Right.
the best person in the world, the most well-meaning person in the world, and still have things that are not right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think for me personally, again, a lot of this is leaving people with the idea that, on both ends, like have a criteria, but constantly should be looking to stress test it, revise it, like no different than if I use like a business term where, people historically have looked at the best kinds of investments this way. But as the world changes and evolves, you do have a core reason why you're doing things, but you do have to alter those things, keep up with the times, understand what the momentum in the world is happening. So and I think dating and relationships is no different. That as you become a different person, because your criteria at 18 might be one thing, then
Mhm.
25, then 30, then 40. So,
Mhm.
yes, your core values are going to be there, but then the way that you look at them and the way that you see them may change. So that's one side. And then the other side is, again, truly having people that will hold you accountable, because
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I see is, especially for women, there's so much emotion involved in things that, once you start to like a person, then we can rationalize anything, right? Like
Mhm.
once I like Oreo cookies again, right? Like I can say, hey, I worked out today, I can have them, or oh, I'll
Mhm.
do a twice as hard workout tomorrow. Once we really want something or we like something, we'll give ourselves the excuse to do it. So,
Mhm.
a big thing for me is having the criteria before you meet people, and then
Mhm.
really always thinking about what you can learn. Then
Mhm.
once you do it, it's not just a feeling thing where I feel attached and now I'm going to rationalize it. It's you're actually going through the steps to say, this is what I actually wanted. This is how I look at it. And then maybe there's someone there holding you accountable, like a mom, like a friend,
Mhm.
saying, look, you deserve this and this. And remember, this is what you said that you wanted. And it
Mhm.
kind of reminds you that.
Yeah, and I think that like you said, the thing is you can rationalize anything, especially, I mean, my gosh, like it's not even if you like somebody, it could be if you've been through a drought, maybe you haven't dated somebody in forever
Yeah.
and they just fit enough of, your picture to say like, okay, I think that self-awareness is so huge because like you said, what you're talking about is emotional maturity and self-awareness to be able to say, I mean, how many people do you know, even at our age, that date just to date and they don't really have a reason why or an end game? Or, it's just like, okay, it's Friday night and I'm going on a date because it's Friday night. You know what I mean? Like, not like I'm going on a date because I want a girlfriend or,
Yeah.
whatever the thing is. So again, it's about being self aware because that really comes into play. That awareness allows for you to sit back and say, wait a minute, you know, yes, this person may have some endearing qualities, but in the long run, in terms of what I'm looking for, big picture wise, do they really fit into what I'm looking for? Now that is huge. And can you have that, much self-awareness when you factor in all those things, like I said, like loneliness, like I'll even venture to say desperation, I mean, like, because, sometimes those two things can go hand in hand. You just want companionship and you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know how much of it can you prevent, but I agree with what you're saying in the sense that if anybody were watching this, the takeaway would definitely be, try to be aware of why you're making the decisions you're making and don't lower your standards, hold on to your values, have accountability with friends or family or, whoever you under normal circumstances, go to for advice and trust with your yeah, with your life advice basically,
Yeah, no, and I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. And again, to answer your question in there, that I don't think there's anybody really that I know that is going about things with that much self awareness. It's most of the people aren't, but I think that's why it's such a big problem, and it becomes
Yeah, it is.
a snowball effect. That like the longer you
Totally.
do that, then technically the more either lonely or desperate you get, which means then you make worse decisions, which means then the next time and it just keeps getting worse. And
Yeah.
so I think to me, the idea is to be proactive and nip these things in the bud where, you're not having so many, 16 to 25-year-old men and women that are going out there and having these bad experiences, which is then causing this jaded mindset around people and
Yeah.
dating and expectations. So then by the time they're in their 30s. They've almost in some ways just given up hope or just figured, hey, I don't need a relationship. I don't want one. And then when that momentum of loneliness or sadness or depression or desperation builds up, they go, well, now I want something. But then you've spent so little time practicing what you want, thinking about what you want. You've just been avoiding all of
Yeah.
those things. And so
Yeah.
again, it's like, becoming extremely overweight and then saying, okay, tomorrow I want to be in shape. Well,
Yeah.
that's a process that takes a lot of time. And so, my hope is that, we have more people hold us accountable in life. Cause I think as we're young, that's the biggest problem. But I think as we get older, it's on us to not let those things snowball.
I agree. Like you said, I think it's about personal accountability. And again, when you mentioned weight and, weight loss and all those things, I mean, it's applicable to pretty much anything, whether it's, you have to be intentional about what you want, driven towards, is it a goal to buy a home, to have children, to find a partner, whatever your career choice and path may be. All of those things require intent, require effort, you know what I mean? And so I don't know why anybody would think relationships would be any different, but it seems like that's just kind of how things go, like you see somebody, you like them, and that's pretty much it. That's this, that's the beginning and end of things. And then you figure it out as you go. And like you said, and something that bothers me the most is like, it's not okay to hurt people. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like so many people, like you said, it's not necessarily that it's intentional, but because of your lack of intent and your lack of, like you said, understanding what it is that you want and what you're trying to achieve. Perceptions and jaded and that kind of thing. And that's the part that makes me the most sad, is that if you're not thinking about, what role you play, what role your energy, influences in other people's lives, then there's a lot of room for hurt. And
so. Yeah. And it's a really big problem. So, I think it's a great conversation to continue to have in some aspects, and maybe we'll kind of loop this topic into other things that we talk about and touch on. Cause I really do think it's as important as anything. I think that's a good ending point to just kind of like, know that this is something we'll keep working on.
Okay, good deal. Good to talk to you.
You.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam Khalil. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I definitely want you to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more content like this. But if this content had any value to you, click the like button as well.